Today on One Fine Baby, we're talking about what you need to know before you give birth. I think when I first gave birth, I had absolutely no idea what was about to hit me, and there were so many things I wish people had have told me before I had my first child. We're going to run through some tips on things that you probably should know about before you have your first baby.
My first thing that I wish that I had been told after birth was about cluster feeding. I got such a surprise between the hours of 12 and 6 to be up every hour on the hour for those first couple of days. It was a nightmare and a very, very rude shock. And my second tip is those last few weeks before I gave birth, it was all about me. How are you feeling? How's Renee? Is she rested? Is she taking it easy? And then as soon as the baby was born, it was all about the baby. How's the baby? Is the baby sleeping? All of those kind of things. And I think it was really important that I worried about me and checked in on myself, and that self-care at that really crucial time. So that's definitely a top tip that I would pass on.
I wish I hadn't paid as much attention to creating a birth plan as I did. I went into childbirth thinking that I was going to have a natural birth, and I had a really well thought out birth plan. But in the end, I was induced, and so I went into a lot of pain and ended up asking for an epidural, which I thought was the end of the world and so not what I wanted, and it actually ended up being the best thing I ever did. So I was really happy about that. It was so good actually that I practically walked into my next childbirth backwards because I wanted that epidural. And the second thing that I wish that somebody had told me was that birth is not the end goal. I went into childbirth thinking that giving birth was the ultimate goal. Actually wasn't. It was actually the start of the race, and everything that happened to my body from that moment, from giving birth to having a brand new baby to care for, to seeing how my body changed and what was going on, made me realise, and my emotions made me realise that that was actually just the beginning.
The two things I wish that I knew before I gave birth would be, number one, that you would still look pregnant way after you've given birth. So I would be walking around with a belly looking like I'm 6 months pregnant. I didn't know that was normal, but apparently it takes some time for your uterus to contract. So I wish I had known about it, because it was a massive shock for me walking around feeling like I was still carrying a load of babies. In my case, I have twins. The second thing would be that you could potentially suffer or have abdominal separation. I didn't know what that was. It was a major shock to me. I didn't even know if it was repairable, but it is. So I've got a separation about fist wide, about here. So that took me years and years. I'm still working on it, but yeah, so your abdominals can separate. Yay. Okay, so the things I wish someone had have told me before I gave birth, well, there's quite a few things actually that I'd like to share. One would be the boobs. So my boobs I thought were big enough when I was going into the hospital, like when I was about to give birth. I thought they had reached their capacity. I'd gone from like a B to like a triple H or something crazy. They actually doubled in size from there. So the colostrum came through, like I'd had the baby, the colostrum came through, and that night I woke up and they were like Dolly Parton size. So it was crazy. Like literally my hands weren't big enough. Like I couldn't hold them in my hands. It was crazy. Anyway, I had no idea about that. So I had to buy more maternity bras and things like that to fit them. So that's a huge thing that I was shocked by. Another thing is the hormones. So after I gave birth, and this sounds so negative, and it's not about being negative, it's really just about understanding what's about to happen to your body, because then you can be prepared, you're not totally shocked. So yeah, my hair all fell out, like all around here. That's what they talk about, baby hair being around your hairline. That was a huge thing for me, and that happened to me. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen to everyone, but it did for me. Pre-birth, I had amazing hair because it's so thick and beautiful, but yeah, it does fall out, unfortunately. And the hormones. So 3 or 4 days post-birth, I know for me, and I know a lot of other people, you just cry for no reason. You just cry, and you just can't help it. But just know that's coming. And I also think around the 6-week mark, because after you have the baby, everything's fine and you feel like this superwoman, but that's because your hormones are working in overdrive, and they're letting you have 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night, and they're giving you the energy to keep going. But at 6 weeks, something happens to those hormones. So just be aware of that, especially if you start getting the blues. That's a bit of a sign. So, and the last thing was probably maternity, where you don't really think about feeding because you don't understand the type of clothing that you have to wear. So if you can think about your feeding wear, because you don't have time to go to the shops or trying things on, so just buy some things that are feeding friendly. You can just whip them out. Anyway, so that is some tips from the One Fine Baby team. Everyone is unique and different about the way they go through the birth, be it natural or through the hood, and whatever takes your fancy, whether it's with an epidural or complete natural birth. We are all wishing you the very best, and we hope you can get some tips from us and learn from what we've been through, so it makes your experience better. Thanks guys, bye.